because travel isn't actually a thing. That's why it's so weird. And that's why we don't tend to do a great job at it. Because there are actually, when you think about it, there's actually multiple levels of what we think of as traveling within D&D. I think the first one that I'm going to talk about 3, but there's as many levels as you want to break it down in. Okay. The first one is overland travel. City to city, or like from a city to another location, right? Like a dungeon or something like that, right? The big overland stuff. And this is what we usually think of when we think of traveling in D&D, right? Like with the rations and making camp and random encounters and stuff like that.
Setting up watches, making sure you get enough water.
Yeah. We have a pretty solid understanding of what that sort of looks like.
For the win.
But when you think about it, there's also intra-location travel. So that's like within a city or a location. Or you could say like from one building to another. I woke up at the Adventurers Guild or at the inn. I want to go to the general store to buy stuff. That's also traveling at a smaller scale.
Oh, I mean, you could say 2 halves of a dinner table where there's 2 PC conversations going on.
Absolutely.
You travel from one side of the table to the other.
That's my next sort of levels. Intra-room travel. That's within a discrete quote unquote room. Within like a building or something, or a dungeon, right? So you can move from one place, like from the table to the bar or to the room in the inn. That's travel as well. And the entire spectrum in between all those 3. It's all actually travel.
Big old bunny ears.
Bunny ears, because it's not actually a thing. Because when you think about it, the difference between those levels though is how we handle it. Because in concept they're the same thing. From the perspective of people sitting at the table and playing the game, that's us, right? And the DMs and the PCs, right? What we think of traveling is just a sequence of static stages that contain scenes. You think about it, we don't role play necessarily walking from the tavern to the general store. We can, but if there's no RP scene that we don't want, we just skip it. Do you RP walking from the table to the bar? No, you say, I go to the bar, and the next scene is, oh, you're at the bar. What do you say to the bartender?
There's plenty of time where you kind of have a quote unquote, I will put it in quotations, a stationary conversation that a PC will look across at the DM like 5-10 minutes into the conversation and be like, we were walking this whole time.
Right. But that's a scene within the walking. Like, because it takes, I don't know, like 20 minutes to walk to the thing. You're not going to necessarily RP for like things you want to do. I take 2 steps forward and then I say this, and then I look over here. Like, it gets really tedious because traveling is tedious. It sucks.
It's very Goldilocks. It's either too fast or too slow.
Right. Because the traveling itself is not interesting. Right? It's not actually a thing that we care about. The moving from one location to another at all 3 levels is the same. We don't care about it, right? Like the intra-location stuff, we have scenes from one building and another building, right? Into room, it's different locations in a room. Overland travel, we have the scenes where we make camp, where maybe stuff happens during the day.
Not really, right? You're like, oh, is this a good place to camp? Okay, we make camp. And there's some more conversation, but there's no like, I roll out my bedroll and then I stake the points.
Because no one cares about that.
The tarp across the
right? Because we do that every night, right? What we care about is the scene. Is there an RP scene?
Yeah.
Right? Oh, at night there's watch. What we care about is there a random encounter that I need to fight or something. We don't care about the actual time where I'm on watch. We skip to the part where something happens. Overland travel is basically a series of intra-room scenes put together like a montage. We skip the actual moving between scenes, and the RP and the combat and whatever else happen within those scenes.
Yes.
There's gameplay level stuff, of course, like your skill challenges, skill checks, and they fit well for the actual travel portion of it.
So many quotations.
I know.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, because nothing's happening. It's just a roll.
No.
Let's move on.
Yes, because you're narrated to a point, and then there's an external stimulus. You deal with that, and then you're narrated to the next point.
And the only reason that we may care about those challenges is that they affect the next scenes coming up. Oh, something happened. I lost HP because I fell off a rock or something like that. And now the next scene, which is the combat scene.
Mom said, don't climb no rocks.
Right. I'm starting 5 HP back. But if it doesn't affect anything, no one gives a crap about those skill checks. Right? Skill checks for the sake of skill checks while you're traveling is not fun.
Right. I mean, I suppose, though, you built your ranger to be that explorer, woodsman kind of thing, and now you get to show off why you built your character the way that you built it.
But without a scene that's affected by that makes that matter, there's no point in doing it. right? The actual travel itself has no meaning. It's the scenes itself that lend meaning to the movement between the scenes, right? It's a lot like scenes in a play, right? Act 1, scene 2, Act 1, scene 3, right?
Oh, my favorite.
And a good play contains only scenes that are essential to the story and the specific experience of that play.
Right.
There is nothing else. There's no extraneous scenes that don't hold meaning. It's always a balance between how much time we're spending or expending on this scene and the value that we get back from it. And I argue that D&D is the same. And so when we think about traveling, there shouldn't be any non-essential scenes within your travel montage, because all that does is dilute your role-playing or gaming experience as a player, an experiencer of that campaign. That results in less fun, less engaging, and more boring. Travel is not a thing. It's the scenes put together within the travel experience that we care about, that make things fun or not fun. But you're like, okay, great, all the values in the scenes. So then what? I'm going to move on. I'm going to talk about how travel is like sales.